Lucas began giggling again. But the worst of it, she says, yes, well, you should shut your eyes when you kiss, shouldn't you? I have no idea, actually. They do it in films, so one assumes it's usual, but I checked once or twice, and he never shuts his. He just stares as though he wasn't involved at all, but wanted to see the effect on me, as though it was an experiment, which I suppose it makes sense it was. He's going to be handsome, though, one day, she says, when he loses his puppy fat. You think? Lucas stopped laughing, stung. Women will fancy him. He'll be a vet or a doctor, and he'll get a reputation for being good with children and old ladies, and women will want to sleep with him. But he's gay. Actually, I think he's just very unhappy, and he wants to be on whichever team is currently winning. This quote comes from a book called Friendly Fire by Patrick Gale. Why I chose this author and the quote to start my project. The reason is because Patrick Gale is one of my grandma's favorite authors. One day when she was still living in Havre, Montana, she came upon one of his books and bought it, and read the whole book in a week. Ever since buying the book, she's been buying all of his books that he has ever published. Her favorite book from him is Friendly Fire, and when I told her about this project, she recommended me Patrick Gale as my person. So my person for this project is the author by the name of Patrick Gale. Here's a bit background on Patrick Gale. He is a British novelist. He was born on January the 31st, 1962 at the Isles of Wight. He was the youngest child out of four. His father worked as a warden in the prison. Patrick's family moved around to other places whenever his father needed to report to a different prison. At a young age, Patrick had a near-death experience with his mother when she flipped over her car with all four children inside with her. Everyone came out okay, though Patrick's mother was scarred from the incident. Patrick would soon grow up and went to Winston College, then went to New College, and then to Oxford. After his time in college, he would start to write his first two books, those being The Aerodynamics of Pork and Ease in 1985. Around the time of 2005, Patrick would find his partner named Aiden Hicks. They would get married in 2008. In today's time, Patrick has published 16 novels, two books full of short stories, and worked on two books that contain some of his light writings and other works of other authors. Now knowing some of the background of Patrick Gale, now we can take a look at three pieces of his own work. The first one being The Aerodynamics of Pork, then Dangerous Pleasures, and the last one being Friendly Fire. In his first book, called The Aerodynamics of Pork, tells the tale of two characters, a young boy named Seth, who is considering himself as being gay. The other character is Mal, who is a detective that is trying to find her own true love as a lesbian. The book may focus on two different characters, though the characters will go through the same challenges with dealing with how to find the right person for themselves and dealing with those around them that may not think so positive about those people. The strength of the book is Seth and Mal. Both characters are truly what makes the Aerodynamics of Pork a great read. You feel for the characters and when they're confronted by a character who doesn't see you the way they think. The book brings up a problem trying to find true love in the same gender while dealing with people who may not be seen so open-minded. Patrick Gale had a strong start with the book called The Aerodynamics of Pork. Though some negative side for the book is that it does drag in some places here and there, but overall, it is a pretty good read. For his second work, I'm deciding to look at his first short story collection called Dangerous Pleasures. Dangerous Pleasures are a bunch of short stories that deal with different types of stories, those being from fairy tale-like stories to those of more shocking, revealing stories. The more fairy tale-like nature stories seem to be my personal favorite from the book because it tells of more unrealistic relationships that could play out as real, though it's just a fairy tale-like stories. But I found it to be the most interesting because it tells the tales of very interesting characters and very good detailed stories. The more real shocking stories in the book that play more in real life also tends to be pretty good too, though I personally feel like the fairy tale stories are just a tad bit better, though the shocking stories do go into some places that can be considered a little dark, but since it's taking place in the real world, makes sense. My least favorite part about the book is the really short stories of about distant memories. I'm not a huge fan of how it was told and the way it was placed. It seems the book went fairy tale and then a more shocking real life story, and then between the next fairy tale story there would be inserted a very, very, very short story about a distant memory. I was not a huge fan of it because it just seems very jarring and a little bit out of place. Overall, Dangerous Pleasures was an enjoyable read, and though not my personal favorite, it was a good read, with the short fairy tale-like stories being my personal favorite, with the shocking real true stories being relatively good. And while the past memory may not be my personal favorite, it could be just me. It's short stories, so it can be your personal favorite too. It's just up to you as reading for the short stories. There are many other choices I could have gone with that come from Patrick Gale, but I chose the one that both introduced both me and my grandma to his works. That book being Friendly Fire. The book tells of a tale of a young schoolgirl by the name of Sophie, who is left struck with a boy in her class. Though the boy named Lucas doesn't share the same feelings and is trying to find the right partner of the same gender for him. Will Sophie learn to understand how Lucas feels about his true love, or will this create unbelievable tension between the two and their surrounding classmates? The biggest strength of the book, as I stated before with the aerodynamic support, is the characters. Sophie and Lucas are extremely good written characters, and you really feel for them and how their relationship evolves over the chapters of the book. It was very interesting to read it. Another great positive for the book is the setting that takes place. The way that the school has been written was very interesting, and I like how it still keeps the old-fashioned ways back when it was first started. The way that Patrick Gale written the setting for it was really good. My only problem with the book is that it seems to drag in just some parts of the book, but for the rest of the book, it tends to keep at a pretty good pace. After reading this book, I recommend it to one of my personal friends to give it a read, because he shares similar issues with Lucas in the book. As a small town in Montana that pretty much leans conservative, it's hard to come out as gay or bi sometimes. It's also hard for people to truly find what they want in a relationship. After I recommended this book, he came up and told me that he truly, truly found the book very remarking, and he actually came out to his whole family, which was very surprising for him, how they accepted him. With that, I personally found that his best book out of all the books he's written, that is Friendly Fire, is my personal favorite, since it has some more personal connections in real life for me. Before this project, I truly did not understand who was Patrick Gale, but after this project, I now understand who he is and how great of a writer he is. I truly liked the novels that he did read. I did have some little issues here and there with some of his books, as I stated before, but truly he is a personal favorite author of mine now. I understand the reason why my grandma fell in love with him so much, and I highly recommend the books that I said in this project. Thank you.